PPRNradio.net. Commercial free 24/7. You're listening to PPRNradio.net.
Caught you knocking at my cellar door. I love you, baby, can I have some more? Ooh, the damage done. I hit the city.
Hey everybody, thanks for joining us again on Open Source Recovery Radio. And as per usual, we have a very interesting guest this evening. Actually, we have a couple. I want to tell you that I've been toying with the idea. I have a lot of ideas, you know. I've been toying with the idea of what it would be like to start a little small program that combined addiction and music, just because I have some people in my life who are very much into music. And then I found out about this program in New Haven called Musical Intervention. So, of course, I became really intrigued by that. And I actually was down there the other day and checked it out. And it's pretty cool looking inside. It's very chill. And so I asked Adam to come on, who runs this organization, and we're going to find out all about what musical intervention is about and how it helps people in recovery and in general. And I also have another guest, my friend and colleague Teresa Spencer is going to be joining us. And Teresa, I don't even know where to start. She's done so much for addiction and recovery community, and she's in the process of becoming a APRN, and I know when she finishes that process, she's going to help people in a very direct way. So I'm going to start by just I'm going to ask Adam to introduce himself and to talk in general about what musical intervention is all about and what the vision is for that organization and how does it help people in recovery. So go ahead, Adam.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
It's really nice to be here. So I'm Adam Christofferson. I'm a local guy, New Haven and East Haven. And basically this thing has been in my system since about 17 years old. The goal was at first to be able to just express myself with music and try to heal from a lot of the damage that had happened early on in my life and just being surrounded by just a lot of chaos. And I really got an amazing opportunity to meet up with a fantastic social worker named Sue Feldman, who is running a great program in New Haven called the Village of Power. And she had me come in and help some of the ladies out who were suffering from addiction, AIDS, homelessness, a lot of things. And she wanted me to come in and make some music with them and help develop their choir. And so I did that, and it was pretty successful. I mean, it was fun, and everybody really enjoyed it. And I got a little paycheck out of it. And I was like, as a musician, getting paid, it's kind of a unique experience. So it was kind of an eye-opener at that moment. So I went to college, got my degree in rec therapy, and I started work at Yale Child Psych Inpatient Hospital. And it was in there that I started helping kids write and record original music. And it was
That's a tough setting to do that in.
I remember my first day on the scene. This kid just got up, walked over to another kid, punched him square in the face. He was restrained, and then they put him in the quiet room. And then he started kind of punching himself and doing some crazy stuff in the quiet room. And I was like, what did I get myself into here? I was like, where am I? But I fit a unique role for the kids, you
Absolutely,
know,
yeah.
and so being able to help them create and express themselves in this other way, I think was
Bless you,
was
Peter.
was really appreciated. And so the medical director at the time and my supervisor encouraged me to start a private practice where I could just go to different facilities, maybe not just inpatient, but also like some outpatient programs, and work with different populations also, helping people just write, record, and perform original music. And I mean, it's kind of like your dream job, right? I mean, it's something I really love doing, and you know, I'm really comfortable with, in mainly like any setting with any type of person, but especially with people who are kind of in vulnerable places in their life. I just kind of have a desire to be there with them, you know?
And where do you think that comes from?
You know, it was kind of like my upbringing. My father, like I was telling you guys before, my father's a Vietnam veteran, and he's got some PTSD and a lot of different things that had happened to him throughout the years, coming home and whatnot. And so there was a lot of rowdy people. I remember just kind of going to the bars when I was really young, and just being around that kind of stuff. You know, also one of my favorite memories was he used to work on an island called Rogers Island, and I was in Stony Creek. And I remember I got kicked off the island for being a brat, and so I would spend most of my time while my father was working at the Puppet House Theater in Brantford, and hanging out with Jim Weil and a lot of the original Creekers there, another rowdy group. And I don't know, just kind of feel home there, you know. My mom has schizophrenia, so you know, I remember visiting her at the psych hospitals as a kid, inpatient psych hospitals, and I remember actually at one point even just jumping on the piano and like playing music for people.
In the psych
In the
hospital?
psych hospital
Okay.
as a young kid. Yeah. And so I guess that's just kind of my comfort zone. And so working at the child psych hospital for some people was, you know, unbearable for some people. But for me, it was kind of like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like your background, your musical interests, your musical abilities are kind of all melded into a career.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And to bring it back to recovery, a buddy of mine, we were really close. It was my first band. I was the drummer. He's the guitar player, and he wrote really incredible songs. And you know, we used to get high and play and have a good time. But then the drugs kind of got evolved for him and for other people in our circle, and it got to the point where heroin was involved, and you know, I took away him from the music scene,
Right.
and I was kind of left without a band at that point. So I started playing guitar and kind of expressing myself to try to, not only for me to try to get away from drugs and to try to like find solid ground again, because I didn't really know. I had lost all my friends, because when you tend to stop doing drugs, your friends don't really want to hang out with you, or vice versa. So you have to kind of start over again and find some new ground. And for a while it was poetry. You know, poetry is a good friend of mine. I would get away to New Haven and just kind of figure out what the hell was going on in my mind and you know, keep myself occupied. And when my buddy left the band, I started playing guitar and found that I could write music pretty quick, and that it was helpful to me. And I started learning the process of recording, and I started documenting these songs, and I was pretty stoked. I was like, basically found myself, you know, in that identity thing, and it was healthy, you know, it was a healthy thing to do. And so just kind of had a lot of exposure to drugs and mental illness and alcoholism and a lot of stuff. And unfortunately, I saw a lot of the bad stuff. You know, I saw people die, and we've had friends die. Yeah. And I knew that I already knew what heroin would do to a person. I saw it clearly in my life.
Right.
So I had something in my mind that was telling me not to go there.
Yeah.
So I was fortunate, I guess, in that way.
Yes, you were.
Yeah.
Terry?
You know, I've had it's a strangely disproportionate number of really musically talented clients in whatever setting I go to. I always have a lot of clients who are very musically inclined, and I don't know what the correlation is there, but it's definitely there.
Can I chime in on that?
Of course, go ahead, Teresa.
Being that I'm in graduate school and this is the stuff we're talking about. So I am studying to be a psych mental health nurse practitioner, and I'm interested in substance use, and at the same time I'm studying the mental health aspect of it, plus I work in inpatient psych. So, and I'm also working with, substance use clients. When I work with Dr. Bono, I'll be working with him shortly.
That's right.
And dealing with addiction, how it affects the family. So I'm sort of getting a 360-degree look at it. But I do want to, when you were talking about, your personal trauma, you had a lot of childhood trauma, and what happens when you have those traumas and it all becomes emotion, and you can't necessarily create a narrative, a logical narrative. So it kind of, when you have that kind of trauma, it stops in the right brain, and it doesn't cross over to the left. And therefore, communication becomes a right-brained function, which is where you get all of these patients who have been traumatized and can only express themselves through artistic means.
Right.
Which is why what you offer is so critical and important as a means for them to express themselves, because they never got it over to the left brain. And that's something that can happen with therapy and time and love and hope.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, they become right-brain dominant, and that is where you get the artistic. Many patients can draw unbelievably well. They can sing, they dance beautifully, they have this whole, they're tremendous poets.
Right.
So all of that comes out of the right brain. So this is a great place to begin the healing process. So
No
and
doubt.
I totally admire that's what you're doing.
Yeah, it seems like, a lot of people, there's so much intelligence, I feel like in that creative place, there's so much intelligence. For example, I go to the App Foundation, which is an incredible organization serving people in recovery. And they have folks from DOC and people that are, through the courts as given kind of an alternative treatment plan to just go to these programs. And so I've been going to Bridgeport now for the last 3 years.
To their residential program.
To their residential
Right.
program. And the talent and the intelligence
Right.
is all there, and, unfortunately, that doesn't always mean you always make the best decisions to keep yourself and other people healthy. However, being in the room and offering a place for them to come and record their creativity, their expression, we've had miraculous things happen. I'd really love to play a song for you to hear kind of what happens in here. I know that we have 2 tracks on board. And I have a hard time deciding. But
we'll eventually play both. Just pick one.
okay.
Just tell us if there's a little bit of background to the
Sure.
song. Fill us in on that.
Sure. I think one of them's called "I Know You," and "I Know You" came out. There's 2 guys in this one in particular, and this was at an interesting time at the app. So we had, people, guitar players, keyboard players, and they were all kind of combined in this tiny little room that we had. And we laid down some basic tracks for them to freestyle over. And they crafted out a couple of really clever lyrics. But if you follow the lyrics intently, this is hip hop. If you follow the lyrics, they're really expressing where they're coming from and how they want to get better. And in the hook, we're trying to get people to start to combat some of that thinking that they're, left to their own devices, whether they've been just abandoned and they're coming from that mindset. That's why we call it "I Know You." I know that you can be anything you want to be, and just getting them to start hearing that positive voice.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Got so many problems, not enough fingers to count on. I seen too many things, I probably just been around too long. I spent too many days wasted in my wasting time. Where did my 33 years go? I must have just misplaced the time. Am I really gonna change this time? I hope I do. I spent so much time in my lies, I just don't know the truth. I got so much to do, I got so much to prove. I got no time to spare, wasted sitting around with you. And so I move on, leave another past behind. Create a new song, focus on the present line. I am too strong not to take another try. Done with all the negative bull, I found another vibe. Former bars, but my brain is shot from smoking dust. The long-term side effects, man, they really f*** me up. I need my mind back, no fighting back, no giving up. I've been dodging death so long, it's time I start to live it up.
Pushing like Barack, I'ma make change. I know better than I knew to do better than I did. I can't maintain in the same lane, knowing I got a kid. Life colder than the fridge to hold my flow. You need some other mitts. I'm too legit to quit this drug I spit. You need a dose of this, no opiates, but take a pic, record it, clip to savor it. Posted up the favorite, study it, yeah, major it. Not even slacking in church. My life a gift and a curse. It could have been worse. Straight out the womb to the hearse. Praying and doing my dirt. If it good, but it hurt. Gotta change up how I work before I get murked. Then end up with somebody's shirt. Now that I'm clean, that's a perk. Thank God I put them first. Let's see how this works. Yeah.
I know you. I know you. I do.
You could be anything. I know you could.
I'm right here in your blood, flowing right through your mind. I'm reaching parts unknown, I'm taking back the time. I hold you in my hand, I hold you in my heart. Nothing can stop it now, I've been there from the start. Come closer to me, my love, I'm better than any drug.
That's me freestyling at the end.
When I was on my way here, I was listening to this TED Talk about, what's more important than happiness.
Get on the mic.
Am I on?
Closer.
Okay. So when I was on the way here, I'll repeat that because obviously I wasn't pronunciating. I was listening to this TED Talk about what's more important than happiness is meaning and purpose in your life. And there were 4 pillars, and I can only remember 3 of them. But one of them was transcendence. And, the woman who was doing the TED Talk, she talked about people having different ways of, having a transcendence-like experience at church, through music, through art, in different ways. And I think that's what's sort of universal, that can be a universal thing with music, is you can have that kind of transcending, I don't know if that's the word, transcending experience. I even was, it reminded me too, when about 7 years ago, I went through a difficult divorce, and I discovered the obsession of collecting music on iTunes, and I spent hours and hours just checking out new artists, and then through that artist, they always have suggestions of new artists, and I just got so caught up into it, and I know that I was really just finding a way to cope and heal through music. And I'm not, I don't have any musical talent at all, but I remember that being a very healing thing, and I just sort of threw myself into that. I think Dave Matthews kind of saved me a little bit.
Dave Matthews saves everybody.
He does it.
If you get yourself there.
Yeah. But anyway, I mean, you can't see us, but Adam was having a slight transcendent experience while he was listening to that song. But so how did that song that was put together quickly? That song?
Yeah. We
Really?
crank out hits.
Man, that's
We have 2-hour sessions, and we try to get as much out because at specifically the App Foundation in Bridgeport, turnover rate, a month, 2, 3 at
Right.
most for most people, and they're gone. So you want to be able to try to get as much done as possible. And yeah, I mean, some of the participants would have stuff ready. They had written while they were in prison. Others were just had the knack to freestyle it right off the top of their mind. Others would be able to just write it out really quick. And other folks would take a little bit extra time, and, we'd be able to kind of go back and get some of that. And they'd be able to work on it, throughout the week and bring it back to me when I came back. So there was always like a place for everybody, whether it was, man, I wish I could play all these songs and talk about all these people because like all the stories, I mean, young, old, African-American, white, Hispanic, I mean, everybody included. And that's what's so cool about music. It's this, universal language.
Right.
And I can't tell you how many times these really tough guys, like before they get to know who's this white dude walking in with his Ray-Bans and like, like this guitar and backpack. And by the time it's over, they're kind of like little schoolgirls, like all like happy and excited, like that they just cut a track, and that it sounds good. And that, we want to keep things positive and keep things inspired. I mean, that's one of our goals in musical intervention. It's to write, record, perform, and inspire the world. We think, there's a battle of the airwaves out there, messages being thrown around. And you were talking about Dave Matthews. I mean, that's a prime example of something really great to throw around if you're going through a hard time, and you want to listen to something positive and something real, you're going to want to listen to that positive music, And unfortunately, there's a lot of music out there that's telling people to do the opposite. It's saying that if you don't have this, that, and the other thing, then, good. So why don't you just go kill somebody and get that, And it's kind of just like, it's unfortunate that that's a way to get popularity and fame with shock value and content, things like that. But, we're just going to keep the fight on for ourselves by just promoting empathy and just transforming lives through the power of song.
I have two things. One is, what is the outlet for your music? Can you get this on the air anywhere? Is anyone else playing it?
There's a little bit of a bottleneck right now. We have a few CDs at the headquarters that you can get there. There part of the musical intervention is basically a 3-part harmony. There's our services where we go out to different facilities like the App Foundation, CMHC, Yale University's School of Medicine, Cedarhurst School. And we provide that service where we go in, write and record original music, and then they get a CD at the end of it. We have the headquarters where we provide a space that's open to the public. It's a very strict drug and alcohol-free space.
It says it right on the front door.
Oh, yeah. It's in like these big letters. And, we want to make sure that doesn't just muddy the waters. I mean, And so the third part of the harmony I'm working towards as I try to balance all these things, which is the publishing and getting these amazingly talented people and their music into commercials and into places where money could be generated to help them. I mean, I work a lot with the homeless in New Haven, and you just wouldn't believe the talent that's there. And a lot of people aren't getting services, not because they're not available, but because it takes a long time. You get into the system, and some of the people that I've been working with, for example, my main guy at the headquarters, him and I have been going now for like 1.5 2 years. He's been homeless for 3 years, right? He just got housing, and if musical intervention wasn't there, if the headquarters wasn't there for like as a steady place for him to come and just be reminded, hey, don't forget to check up with your case manager. Don't forget, hey, why not check with this organization? We also kind of provide that service to the community too, kind of on the side. We want to see people get the services they need. But, they need something to do in the meantime. Right. And if they're staying at the shelters, they're getting kicked out at 7:00. and they're kind of left to their own devices all day. So what do? You go to the green, and if you try not to get high, right, or whatever. It's a tough road for the homeless.
That's I've seen some really successful like clubhouse models like that, where people can go and just socialize and watch movies and take a shower. And
I think the fellowship place is a champion in that. They've been doing that for a long time.
But I was there at the headquarters, and it's such a warm, inviting atmosphere in there. And I think I met your guy. He was really friendly. Came up, gave me some brochures.
Oh, cool.
And I could definitely see if you're someone who's struggling with some of those life problems, but you got a place to go and be around music and be involved in music, and that would be pretty inviting.
Yeah. The headquarters was in my mind at 17. At the time, it was called Cafe Cave. And I was trying to get it with some politicians. I was trying to make it work with this nonprofit model and whatnot in East Haven. It started, but then kind of politicians could be seasonal, and they could drop off the face of the earth at any moment. Yeah. And so that's kind of when I said I kind of put Cafe Cave, which ultimately became Musical Intervention Headquarters, on the back burner. Went to college, got my degree, and was able to kind of find a model that's not nonprofit. It's more social entrepreneurial, and it kind of works. We're starting this new thing, and I'm really fortunate to hire my first musician to go in and work with the fellowship place every week with a group from there. And so we've begun to kind of subcontract our work and hire other starving artists that are out there to do basically what I do, which is help people make music. And I mean, not everybody can do it. Not everybody is comfortable in these different places.
No, it takes a special.
It does take a special person, and somebody who could hang in there, when times get tough and the group kind of gets a little rowdy or whatever. Right. Things aren't really going your way. But to be honest with you, some of the general population groups are more complicated too, because you're dealing with just other stuff. You know what I mean?
I do.
So this headquarters experience has been really a trip. It's like we have at any given time on stage, we'll have a savant, autistic jazz pianist playing with, a guy staying at Columbus House, playing with another guy who's like homeless, playing with, a kid in recovery, and then this like random college student who's just walking by, and singing is like, some, who knows, wannabe pop star, you know what I mean? You just never know, and you could never tell. And as the audience, when they come and see us on our open mics on Thursday, and they come to see, all of the different talents that come around and some new people that just drop by, it gives people who are used to being put in like labels, like you belong to CMHC, so you have mental illness, and this is what you do, and these are the services you provide. These are the groups you go to with other people who have that as well. Mm-hmm. And they get a chance to now come onto the stage and perform in front of the public and be like the rock star. See, like, I don't know, a fight waiting to happen and just all this arguments going back and forth over things that are just personal opinions, or larger things that are like, could be terrible. Like, all the governmental things that are happening, in the globe. And I think like, we have this kind of special place, the headquarters, where we can just watch people express themselves and be excited about a new song that they're writing. And that's good enough. And that vibe to not only like come there and learn for yourself, but to also help other people. Yep. that contribution element is really key in a community.
And that was one of the other pillars, is, meaning and having a meaning in your life, which is oftentimes for many people is helping others.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why there isn't the headquarters. I mean, there should be one of those or two of those in Hartford. There should be one of those in Waterbury.
That's what I want. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I see that.
Yeah.
That's what we need to do. I mean, I spent a year doing an internship in the state legislature, and I learned an awful lot. But what my takeaway really was that we just need to do this ourselves. We need to create a recovery community, and we need to do the work to eliminate the stigma ourselves. And that's the way it's actually going to get done. And you're doing it, and you're a perfect example. And the CARES group, which we had talked about before the show, and they were on the show 2 weeks ago, I believe, is you just get out and get started.
Right.
And it'll happen, kind of like if you build it, they will come. And, you're doing that. And the potential, I think, of having possibly some investors look at your work and get it into all these different cities. But we need to just make it happen and not wait on anyone else to deliver that.
Yeah, and I honestly did that exactly that way. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't have a board to check to run this by. I just timing. I mean, it's been marinating since I was 17, and I'm 33 now. But for example, at the headquarters, I got set up with Project Storefront, so they made it available to me for $1,000 a month for 6 months, and I had initially had a grant set up with the city to continue the work that I was doing with the homeless, and that grant just kind of fell off the table after I signed the lease. So I'm like, okay, so shoestring budget, here we go, right?
Right.
It's 2,300 square foot downtown, right? Beautiful space, right? Completely empty. So we built it out. We have to make it that quality place, a place that's not just thrown together, a keyboard in the corner, drums in the corner. It has to be the vibe, right? Like Steve Rogers has the vibe in Hamden, right? For the space and the outer space. And so like $5,000. I had to basically come up with $5,000 of my own money, and which is basically made through the contracts that I have, and build the place out, right, with the help of Jim Crosby, who my father's friend, who put his, he has the constructor. What is it? Contractor. And, then learning how to deal with the building department and all that stuff. Anyways, it's not easy. It's not easy. And it took a while to get the certificate of occupancy, to actually open the doors, and to fight with them to be like, what do you mean I can't build a stage? Like, I need a stage. And they're like, well, it can't be made out of wood. And I'm like, I can't afford a steel stage. So just so many different elements to it. And we're not state funded. We're not, we don't have any grants that are running this headquarters. It's my money that I'm making through these contracts that we want to build out on. However, we've built value over this past year and a half.
For sure.
So this has only been open for a year and a half.
Yeah.
So, okay. I didn't realize how new it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the services, I've been doing it now for almost 15 years. The headquarters was like, okay, so I got a grant through the National Endowment, and I did a project with the homeless in New Haven, and I provided an open mic at the Soup Kitchen, and then I provided some songwriting workshops and recording sessions at Liberty Community Services. And I ended up meeting all these people who weren't receiving any services. They were out on the streets, and they were so talented, and I wanted a place for them to come. And so after the project was over and we encountered so many trials, like one, for example, we were asked to leave a place that we were using to get ready for one of our shows. She's like, yeah, you can't bring them around here anymore. So we were kicked out. Now, our project was homeless, right? So it was like, okay, we need a space to bring them. And so the timing, Project Storefronts worked, and, you can't do that. So now I think we're at the place where we've got the value, we've got some really good people there, but no employment. So we're kind of reached a stagnant point where we need to get funding in here so that we can get management people there that can utilize the space more effectively by providing programming throughout the week that's affordable or free to people who can't afford it, and continue to develop the talent that is there and just provide that open, welcoming space that's so valuable to the community.
Well, it seems to me that you've already established something that you're over the hump where it's so intrinsically interesting and rewarding and gratifying, and anyone who looks at it could see it, and she should be able to find people who want to donate to that and add to it. And
that's what we need. We need people to find the grants. We need and grant writers. We need people. I've put myself into a managerial position of running the headquarters. Mm-hmm. And we've got we've got a really great crew over there. There's like 5 of my close-knit volunteers that have been steadfast, and the outer group, the outer ring, would be like another 10 people that have been steadfast to be volunteering there and giving their all. But we need some people that can find that money, because it is out there. There are investors out there that would believe in this. And there's only so much that I can do as far as doing the contracts and running the place. So we do have to start thinking now in terms of longevity and growth, and obviously spreading.
Have you just off the top of my head, have you used bands or musicians to do like concerts and raise money for your organization? Because I think
there have been some of my friends. Yeah, some of my friends have. Done that. I know Eddie Crash he did that for a while. I know Easy Blues has helped out quite a bit, doing some shows at Musical Intervention. But we're really looking for the grant writers so that we could pay managers to manage that, because setting those things up is very time consuming to market it and get the word out, and you need a task force to really make those events super successful. Mm-hmm. And, and that's all the headquarters stuff. There's so much richness that is already there waiting for the right leadership and management to function in that place. And the only way to make that possible is with capital to pay the people to be able to do that.
My head's spinning and my brain's spinning. We'll talk more off the air. But it's just a really exciting project, and I get to help people in recovery every day. But as I'm listening to your journey there, I'm frankly a little jealous, because you get to you're combining all your loves, and it's just it's a really inspiring thing you're doing, and I just can't see why. There definitely should be more of those. I don't know how many people, what size city can handle how many of those storefront, those headquarters that you have. But man, there should definitely be one in every city in Connecticut for sure.
And so, like the broader thinking, right? Back to the publishing. Mm-hmm. So, take for example, imagine just an art in New Haven. We're getting contracts, working with agencies, and really discovering talent. And a lot of the times, like at the App Foundation, when they get discharged, they come by the headquarters and they get involved in our community. And that right there is talent development. Mm-hmm. And so if we're taking that element and then kind of moving that over into the publishing world and developing the talent into the publishing world, now all of a sudden you're a publishing house.
Right.
And you could be finding songs and content from, and keeping our focus, which is reaching people who wouldn't normally have access to it, who need a hand, And I mean, can you imagine one in Nashville and then one in Chicago and California?
I can.
Yeah.
And you're just finding all of this amazing talent and developing it. And when one of these songs gets placed, the money goes to Musical Intervention, which is serving people that frankly, like I said, don't have access to a recording studio or a warm space, in the winter. And then they have they could also be making some money, personally as a songwriter, and that, like we were saying, these people are kind of stuck on the right side of their brain, and there's value there to the entertainment industry.
Very much so.
And I think it's an untapped resource.
Agreed.
And I don't think it needs to be blasted that these are all the things we're doing and for all these different people. The publishing thing could just be hey, we have a quality sound, we have a quality product that we can offer the entertainment industry.
You're making great music.
We're making great music, and people can feel it.
I want to tell you, that song was very good.
It really was.
It was very good, and should be available to download on iTunes, kind of thing. There is a recovery community out there looking for stuff like this, and we just need to find ways to tap into them. Can we listen to your second song?
Yeah, what's the second one? Make that change. Oh man, this guy is so good. He was there for, I'm not going to say his name, but he was there for 5 months trying to find placement to his next sober house. Couldn't find a place. It took forever. So, he must have recorded an entire EP. He was in so many of my groups. So this guy, he's from Hartford, local guy, super talented. I really, I couldn't say enough good things about his style.
Never. No. Ever. No. I never, ever, way too clever. Yeah. I never, ever. I never, ever, way too clever. I never. Never. I never. I never. Oh, wait. Oh, watch this. Yeah. I never, ever. I never, ever, way too clever. I know better, doing better. I'm a young trendsetter. I thank God that I'm sober. I'm a whole nother roller. I'm lucky like a 4-leaf clover. I'm born again out the stroller. A straight face like a poker. And you a clown like a joker. And never ever going back. It's stressing, need a Prozac. Keep it moving like a nomad. Chalk it out, get a black bag. Kill that shit, get a toe tag. It's dead and going, yeah, it's so sad. I'm Mike Jack, yeah, I'm so bad. I never ever will I go back. I'm moving forward, I can't go back. I swear to God, I can't go back. I swear to God, I can't go back. I swear to God, I can't go back. I never ever way too clever. Never, ever. I never ever way too clever.
Never ever. Yo, I'm way too clever. Active addiction. Yeah, my lifeline it will sever. So many heads I turn as my bridges burn. I may never learn. My ashes in the urn. Yeah, I misbehave, but I changed my ways. Can I be that brave and stay sober till my grave? Slave in the cage, a sober in the shade. It ain't about the age, it's the courage to make that change. Make that change, boy. Make that change, boy.
Make that change.
What? I'll make that change, boy.
Yeah.
I remember back in the days my mama used to smoke the crack in the haze. I wish I could have told her to put the sacks all away. I hated my life. She made me feel totally ashamed. Since then they've been calling me the sick kid. Bad thoughts to death, my feelings are twisted. You think you know, but I've been in some ish, kid. Some stuff where to get out you had to split wigs.
I forgot there were two other guys on that track, and wow, I'm a big fan of the testimony. I wish that I could share their stories and who they are, and I wish they could share it because it's just that much more powerful, and what they overcome. And that just adds so much more weight to the words that are being spoken. But like you said, people that go through that can hear that clearly. And
have you ever had an artist like go into a program with you and talk about their history and then play their music?
No, that's a good idea though.
Oh, you so need to do that. That's very powerful.
Yeah. Because whoever wrote that, he's had a lot of. Obviously, he's been through a lot.
Yeah.
So I could imagine him coming into one of my groups and talking about his recovery and his life and the challenges, and then playing that music. That would be a pretty strong emotional hook.
There's another avenue, which is to take this into, I've done a lot of community forums when I was working with a state representative, and the communities will come out, and they're coming out to talk about the opiate addiction, because in Connecticut it is on fire.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a great place to bring some of these artists in and share their story and share their music.
Yeah. There was just recently a story in New Haven that a lot of that, where is it, off Howard Avenue, the methadone clinic there, getting a lot of slapback because, outside of the building, there's a lot of people who are struggling just to survive, and people are complaining that it's an eyesore and that they don't want to see it. They'd rather have that place somewhere else.
Well, that model where people have to go to a place and stand online, and that model was developed in the 1970s, and we
before that, man, it's that's like Depression era stuff, man.
It looks like that. Yeah, it's like a bread line, but worse, right? But if you've never been in my office, that Teresa has, and there's a dignity, that's why I really responded to the atmosphere when I walked into musical intervention, because I strive to have that similar atmosphere in my private practice, where people can go and get treatment for addiction in an office in a dignified setting,
right.
And there isn't that kind of whole stigma about standing online out in a usually a bad neighborhood, rough neighborhood, and so where you're not wanted, where nobody wants to have a methadone clinic in there,
It's just more fuel to the fire.
Right. So, that is something that I personally have very strong feelings about, because in terms of treating addiction and not making it like a stepchild of the healthcare system, we would not use a model and we would not use medication that was developed in the 70s when we have a model and medication that was developed in the 2003 is when the Suboxone came out, and we have the ability to treat people and more effectively in a more dignified setting, but we don't.
That's great.
I mean, we don't do enough of that. So that
it's great that you're taking the initiative, though.
Well, I did about 6 years ago. I saw that the opiates were becoming an epidemic even before it had this much, sort of press and things like that. And I started a practice for opiate addiction specifically. And I partnered with a physician because I'm a psychologist, and you need to treat both ends of this illness.
No doubt.
And so what happened, though, was I was only taking one insurance, which was Anthem, because when you're doing a part-time private practice, it's really hard to get into taking multiple insurances. Right. It's very intense, time-consuming, and so forth. So, but I kept getting calls from people with state insurance, and they had nowhere to go, and they were desperate, and that was obviously the biggest group of people, So then I took the next step and opened a second practice where I was bound and determined to be able to take state insurance, and so my practice is one of the few private practices that take state insurance in Connecticut, and I think certainly one of the highest. I'd like to say the highest quality practice out there that does that. And so, that's my kind of mission and vision,
awesome.
To be able to provide that care. But I kind of shudder to think about some of my clients.
Do people know where to find you?
I try to make them aware.
Where is it?
It's in Madison. Sure. My practice is in Madison, Connecticut. I always give out people my cell phone number if they want to call and ask me any questions about it. It's 203-464-1001. It's the Center for Compassionate Recovery, and the website is ccrfreshstart.com. But yeah,
Go check it out.
Yeah, no, totally check it out. But you know, I have had many clients who've been in the methadone clinics before coming to my practice, and you know, they don't have great experiences doing that. And they don't get into recovery. There's some harm reduction, but they're not getting truly into recovery, where they're getting their lives back. And you know, so that's what my model is really geared at, is true recovery.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The other piece of that,
Awesome.
you know, I just can't, every time I just can't help going back to this, is what we're all talking about here is connectedness. You know, it really, what heals?
Yep.
What heals any trauma? What helps people move forward from any bad experience is human connectedness.
It's not, yeah, that's the base core of it. It's really not that complex, you know. You know, a lot of times, you know, people talk about the experience they have at CCR and how unique and special it is, and that's wonderful, but I always kind of go back to it should be that way. You know,
Right.
this is how you treat addiction
Yeah.
and the trauma and everything that goes along with it and the mental health issues. And any other way of doing it is sort of not... I mean, you're way off base if you're not having some level of connectedness.
Exactly.
And, you
And
know,
that's what you're doing. You're offering
That's right.
connectedness.
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
Through music. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the healthcare field really is missing the in betweens. You know, they have appointments every other week or a week, and what are you doing during the rest of the week? You're kind of like, you know, fending for yourself, and it's hard to go to find a place to see music and be part of a community that doesn't involve alcohol. You know, I mean, bars are basically
Right.
the only reason why bars. I think that one of the only reason why music spaces are like local music spaces are even around is to sell beer, and like, you know, that community thing is like long gone. You know, a place where people come out to see live music outside of just going to the bar is kind of like, I guess, waiting to come back around. We're not currently in that place right now, but what I really like is that musical intervention and the headquarters on Thursday nights for our open mic, you know, there's not going to be any drinking. So anybody who, you know, doesn't want to be around it, they
Right.
want to play music, but they don't want to
Right.
smell it. They don't want to see it, smell it. And I even tell people, don't even come here if you smell like weed,
Right.
even though it is what it is. And I don't have any personal beliefs like to or for or against it. I just don't want it.
You want everyone there to feel totally safe.
And I don't want people to even think about it.
Right.
Right.
Literally, it says on the sign, a drug and alcohol free zone at musical intervention. It's all about the music. And,
You know, some
really what we're
some
doing.
of my previous clients who are artists and musicians always worried about stopping their drug use because of losing their creativity, you know. And I had, I'll tell you a really quick funny story, is I had this kid, and I call him a kid, he was like 20, but I'm old now, so that's a kid to me. But he you know, he was just obsessed with writing music and recording music, and you know, he didn't want to focus on almost anything else. And he really was concerned that stopping all drug use would sort of diminish his capacity to write and play. And so we listened to a song that he had recorded to me. He wanted to show me what a good musician he was, and how he was really stoned when he wrote this song. And he played it for me, and we're listening to it, you know, and I see his face starting to kind of cringe up a little bit. And so he stops it about halfway through, and he goes, "Wow, that really sucked." But he had never listened to it sober, so he thought it was great, you know.
Yeah,
And so I also worked in a place, Turnbridge, in New Haven, and that's like a year-long residential program.
yeah, we have a lot of them coming in to volunteer at the headquarters.
That's great.
Really talented people coming through there.
Yes,
Oh,
very
my
talented. And they, when I first got there, they wouldn't let those guys go to concerts because it was a high-risk situation.
Yeah.
But when I started talking to some of the case managers, were all in their late 40s, and I'm like, these are 20-year-old kids. They're not going to just like give up music for the rest of their life because because they're sober. That's like, you're really asking too much of them. So over time we developed a policy where like they could go to like Toad's place and listen to music, but they had to go together with a group and someone that was sober for a long period of time, and and they would come back and say, I actually enjoyed it sober.
Brilliant.
I remember the music, and I so they learned to.
Drugs creates almost an addiction for musicians because when they're playing it, obviously they're like high, so it sounds more intense, it feels more intense, and you get kind of like stuck to that as if that's actually the experience that's actually happening.
Right.
And then they have a hard time trying to get back into that place in a sober mindset. And actually, I've been working with somebody who struggles with that. Every time he wants to perform live, he feels like he needs to take drugs to get himself in the mood, and the reality I try to tell him is like, you only think you're in the mood because you feel it more intensely. Like your goal as an artist and as a musician is to find that place sober so that whether you're on it or not on it, you can still be there and be constant and be good.
Yeah.
And, you look at all these like really amazing bands that like, seem to be like glorified because of their drug use. Man, it's like so far from the truth. Like you think of the Rolling Stones. I mean, these guys.
They always come full circle to having to be sober or losing their music and losing their.
Oh, look at the ones
careers.
who die. I mean, these are the guys.
These
are the guys who don't come around. Guys and women who don't come around. Right. And so it's for any musician out there listening to this. If you think you need to get high to be a great musician, you're not trying hard enough sober. You have to try harder sober so that you could be the best you could possibly be, no matter what.
I know we're running out of time, but I just want to throw the last thing on that. And from a psychological perspective, is not most, all drug addiction is self-medication, and you have to ask yourself, what are you medicating? What do you need to overcome in order to make your music? Are you, do you have anxiety? Do you have stage fright? Do you have fear of failure? So once you look at those things and figure out why you need to smoke pots before you start playing. Right. You can take away the source of that discomfort, and then you can play freely. And you can be free of the thing that inhibits you from getting into the mood. So
you have really good insight.
Yes, she does.
You really have incredible insight.
Thank you.
Did you ever see the videos of the lost basement tapes
of Bob Dylan?
Yeah, Bob Dylan.
Oh, yeah.
See, watch those those are like top-notch musicians, right? And they're just creating.
It's the band.
Watching this creative process. And none of them are stoned or high, and you watch. It can be done,
Yeah, definitely. It gets done every day at Musical Intervention.
Right,
that's for sure.
That's right. All right. Well, listen. Next week we're going to give because Teresa has those great insights because she's involved in a lot around recovery and addiction. So I'm going to invite her to come back next week and
I'm tuning in for that.
Yeah, and have her talk about all of that she does. And I'm getting involved in some of her stuff. She's getting involved in some of my stuff.
Sounds like a great duo.
Yeah. And I'm really intrigued. I'd love to come to one of the open. I'm definitely coming to one of the open mic nights on Thursdays.
You got it.
I want to see that for myself.
Yeah, check out the website musicalintervention.com.
There you go. Shameless plug.
23 Temple Street, downtown New Haven. Yeah. Really cool spot.
Yes,
Stop in Tuesday through Saturday, 11 to 4, and the open mic is Thursday from 6 to 9 p.m.
And there's a lot of good places to eat around there. Just
yeah, tons of food. Tons of food. We got a great Greek restaurant next to us. Incredible, authentic, delicious.
I missed that one, but now I'll be checking that out. Yeah, and maybe we can talk about having you doing some work with my practice.
That'd be great.
Okay. Well, we really appreciate you coming, and it was exciting to hear what you're doing, and I really hope that it just keeps booming because it's a wonderful thing you're doing. It really is.
Just thank you for welcoming me, and thanks to PPRN, all the hard work.
Thanks, Pete, and thank you too for Teresa for coming on and helping out. And good night, everybody out there, and good night, Sullivan, and good night, Thea. Love you guys.
You may take a break, but us, we never take